All right, this is Patrick Rogers, and today we have the privilege to have Bryan Clayton on the show. And Bryan's the CEO of GreenPal. Welcome to the show, Bryan.
Patrick, great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You bet, man. So a little bit about Bryan. He's an entrepreneur, author, and speaker who's built a successful career by focusing on hard work, perseverance, and innovation. He's the co-founder and CEO of GreenPal. It's an online platform that connects homeowners with local lawn care professionals. Under his leadership, GreenPal has grown into a multi-million-dollar company with over 200,000 active users. It's featured in publications like Forbes, Inc., and Entrepreneur. Prior to starting GreenPal, Bryan founded Peachtree Incorporated, a landscaping company that he grew to become one of the largest in the state of Tennessee with over 10 million in annual revenue. It was eventually acquired by LUSA Holdings, a national company. Bryan also has been recognized for his leadership and entrepreneurial spirit by organizations like Nashville Business Journal, which named him one of its 40 under 40 honorees, which is pretty awesome. His entrepreneurial journey is a testament of the power of hard work, determination, and a willingness to take risks. He's passionate about helping others to achieve their own success and is always looking for ways to give back to his community. So, Bryan, great to have you on the show. I can't wait to dig into just all of this stuff. You've just been successful at like everything you're touching here. Before we do though, what's one interesting fact about yourself that not many people know?
Well, I like to study a form of self-defense called Krav Maga. It's kind of a hobby of mine, and I don't really talk about it much because that's one of the things they tell you. Krav Maga, the main thing they teach you is how to run away from a fight and how to avoid danger. But if you find yourself in a situation where you have to defend yourself, it teaches you to be very violent very quickly. And so yeah, that's something that probably hardly maybe a handful of people know about me that I've been studying for about 5 or 6 years now, and I love it. It's like a drug. I do it, and I want to do more of it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, so you talk about being violent and deadly and then run. Like, I mean, from what I know about Krav, I've never studied it, but from what I know about it, like you're inflicting some serious injury very quickly. What's your favorite move, like your go-to? And maybe that's a weighted question, but what's your go-to move or the favorite one you look forward to maybe someday having to use? That's
yeah. It's kind of one of those things you hope you never have to use.
Yeah.
But Krav Maga teaches you how to fight dirty, and so you watch MMA, and these are really lethal, brutal guys in the octagon, but they can't eye gouge, and they can't kick in the groin, and they can't bite, and they can't use their thumbs to press into the eyes, and so Krav Maga teaches you to shut the computer down, to stop your opponent or your adversary from thinking. And so probably my favorite is the eye gouge or a kick to the groin will get them to think twice about what they're trying to do. And it's interesting because like you study, I like to do boxing and Muay Thai boxing, things like that. They don't talk about those types of things. That's one of and Krav Maga is one of the only systems that does. And so yeah, I encourage anybody. It's starting to get really popular, and it's worth learning.
Cool, man. Yeah, I mean, to be able to defend yourself in public, the world is a fucking crazy place. So
yeah,
you never know.
You nailed it, man.
Yeah, I usually just carry a gun, but hey, there's states where you can't necessarily do that. So.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Cool, awesome, man. So tell us about GreenPal.
Yeah, so GreenPal is an app that works like Instacart or DoorDash or Uber, but for lawn care services. So if you're a homeowner or you rent a home, you need to get somebody to mow the yard, rather than calling around all over the place on Craigslist or Facebook or something, you just download GreenPal, you pop your address in, and somebody comes out and takes care of it for you. And GreenPal is a 10-year overnight success. My co-founders and I have been at this for a little over a decade, but now we've grown it to a large network of landscaping services throughout the country that you can hire from your smartphone. Around 300,000 people using it every week to get lawn mowing.
Wow. So do you just basically made relationships with these lawn care companies, and they're coming in, they put in their information, and then so you're connecting basically people that need lawn care with the professionals that provide that.
That's right. Yeah. And so for homeowners, it's a nice convenience. You can just push a button and get it done. But for lawn care professionals, which my first business was a landscaping company, we really set out to build a platform to make their life a little easier, make their life better, help them get as many customers as they want, help them get paid on time, help them keep everything organized. The life of a blue collar service based kind of home services entrepreneur is really tough.
Yeah.
You're the last person to get paid and the stack of household bills, and it's like organized chaos every day. And so that's really why we exist, to make those folks' lives easier, and then tee them up to get hired with a smartphone or a website, like you can ordering groceries on Instacart.
Gotcha. And you guys kind of take a little bit of the difference, a commission or certain percentage, and volume is your friend.
That's exactly right. We are a marketplace that works like really like eBay, or Amazon sellers. We take a transactional fee for every
Yeah.
transaction that we drive to our vendor
Cool.
partners.
Awesome. Awesome. So what has been your keys to success? I mean, you've 10-year overnight success, right? Tell us a little bit more about that journey. When did it really start hitting for you? What were you doing to really get that success to pop?
The first 3 or 4 years were really, really challenging. It was like pushing on a string. It was always we were pissing off more people than we were making happy. If a
Nice.
hundred if
Yeah.
a hundred if 100 people used it, maybe half of them liked the experience. And so we had to stay small for a very long time because there was no reason to scale it if it didn't work well. And so we
Yeah.
we operated just in Nashville, Tennessee for 4 years, trying to make the marketplace work smoothly to where we can move that number to 90, 95, 99 out of 100 people use it to hire a lawn mowing service. It goes well. It goes smooth. The service provider shows up, does a great job, and comes back when they're supposed to. And that took a long time to figure out. And that was very humbling. It was very challenging. It took a lot of faith, but we celebrated the small wins. We set little small goals, and when we accomplished them, we celebrated them like big goals. Our first goal was 100 customers in a week, and it took 2 years to get that. But when we got there, we celebrated that thing like it was 1 million people using it. And because I knew if we could get to 100, we'd get to 1,000, and 1,000 to 10,000, and so on. So that's how we did it. It was challenging, and I think what holds up a lot of new founders is they give up too quick.
Mm.
This idea that you have, you're going to be at it for 5 or 10 years. So be
Instant
willing.
gratification. Yeah.
Yeah, be willing to go the long haul because this stuff takes time. There are no overnight successes. If they look like it, it was something else, or that founder did something else for 5 or 10 years before they started that
Yeah.
one. It's never quick.
Yeah. Were there times when you were like ready to call it quits, and were you
Yeah.
close to it?
Yeah,
Let me count how many.
yeah. So something that helped me out was when I sold my first company, I made a decision. From that moment forward, I was just going to work on my best idea by default. That was it. I was going to work really hard on my best idea, and because I was too young to retire, I didn't want to like not do anything, and I guess fortunately I'm not terribly creative. I've had one good idea in 10 years. You should be able to push a button and get this chore done, and that making a living in the landscaping business should be easier. And that was my idea. And so even when things were tough, even when things weren't working, I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to show up. I'm going to pick 1 or 2 or 3 things we can work on, and we're just going to keep doing that over and over again as long as it takes. And
Awesome.
that's how we got through it. But there was a lot of punches in the stomach, a lot of kicks in the growing along the way. But that's just kind of the way it is. Elon Musk describes entrepreneurship as chewing glass, but eventually you come to love the taste of your own blood. And that's how it was. That's how it was for about 4 years.
Yeah, I had heard that, but I forgot about that quote. That's a good one. Awesome. So you had mentioned in our pre-call that one of the biggest lessons that you learned was to automate early and automate often.
Yeah, totally. That was in my first business, which was a landscaping business, grew it to about 150 people. And every day I would solve the same 20 problems every day. And it was just like organized chaos every day running that company. And one of the cool things when I transitioned from running a blue collar business to a tech business, I started to see, wow, man, there's all kinds of unique ways that you can automate things, that you can streamline things, that you can solve a problem once. It's okay to make a mistake, and it's okay to have a problem in the business, but it's not okay to repeat it. And you can get to the root cause of why things aren't working and what's going wrong, and you can build software to solve that stuff. Or you can buy software off the shelf. You can, SaaS as a software as a service didn't exist
Right.
10 or 15 years ago, but now you can buy a solution, almost too many options for every problem you face in business. The problem is most founders don't take the time to
Right.
implement those solutions. They
Right.
don't take the time to solve the problem once,
Yeah.
and then they get stuck in the, like I described earlier, you're
Doing
beating
the
the
same thing.
same
Yeah.
thing over and over again. and they work really hard on the business, like maybe 7 days a week, working really hard.
Sure,
And
sure.
but they're just like a hamster wheel. And then they're like, well, I worked really hard on this and I was supposed to like get success. This was supposed to work. That was the American dream. What's wrong? And the difference is the difference between hard work and difficult work. The difficult work is taking time, saying, okay, how do I solve this with automation? How do I solve this with a system? How do I systemize this thing? And let me just spend a month on this one problem. It could be employee training. It could be customer turnover. It could be payroll, whatever it is. Spend a month or 2 months, however long it takes to systemize and automate that away. So then you can start working on the next problem.
Knowing what you've done now with GreenPal and in your 10-year overnight success, could you go back to your previous company with the automation and technology there and just make a significant improvement, or had you already implemented that in that business as well?
It's such a great question, because that was one of the really haunting things when I was starting the tech company. I started seeing all of
Mm.
these ways I could have made my life so
Oh,
much.
gotcha. Okay, yeah.
So everything from like, we would spend 6 months training a new technician, and after I started seeing, man, we could have built this software module or used these tools, and it had like the best self-serve training system. It could have trained somebody up in 2 weeks. It shouldn't have taken 6 months. Or
Yeah,
we had a full-time person. All
gotcha.
they did was payroll. And I was like, man, we could have saved 100 grand a year, not needing to hire somebody to handle payroll and run it
Payroll.
manually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all of these ways that we could have systemized things that we didn't do, be honestly, because I was just lazy. I didn't want to do the difficult work. I wanted to work hard and not do the difficult stuff. And I think every founder, doesn't matter what business you're in, doesn't matter if you're running a barber shop.
Right.
You need to think like a tech startup. You need to think about, how am I going to introduce technology into my business to make it run smoother and develop a better customer experience for my customers, because your competitors are, and if you don't, you'll get left behind.
Yeah, it's so true, man. There's companies that this whole automate early and automate often thing, it's 100% on spot. I was in property management industry, and we were able to do with 3 people what our competitors were doing with 8 or 9 people. It's the same thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
So much less cost. Yeah.
And these days with Chat GPT, I mean, you think about how much content that either was written half-assed or was written by somebody that you had to pay like $50 an hour to do.
Right.
Boom, done. I
Boom,
mean, and
done.
it's written better. Whether it be like you described, property management, property descriptions, or
Sure,
responding to
sure.
emails from tenants or investors. All of that stuff's going to get better and easier and simpler.
Exactly. Yeah. Are you already using Chat GPT in your business?
It's one of the browsers that's always open in my
Ah, there you go.
Chrome, man. And and
Cool.
and I and I made a mandate. I bought it for everybody. We have 47 people, and I bought it for everybody. And I said, I want to, in our weekly stand up, I want to know how you're using it, and I want you to share with the rest of us how it saved you time. And a lot of, about half of our people like gravitated towards it because it does make your life easier. And then the other half were like, nah, I don't need that. And it's like, no, this is not, we're not running a democracy here. This is
This is not an
mandatory.
option.
Yeah. It's not an
Yeah.
option. Either you're going to use it or you're going to get left behind.
Cool. So speaking of, you talked about weekly stand-ups. I know in before you had talked about the weekly one-on-ones being really pivotal for you in being able to achieve your goals. Tell us more about how that has turned out for you.
It's more for me than anything,
Okay.
because as the chief, as the founder, as it's kind of like the whole company is scaffolding around me, and we're still small. We're under 50 people, and so it can operate that way. And I probably can't scale to 300 people like this, but it works well. And so what the weekly stand up for me does,
Hmm.
holds me accountable, because
Mm.
I don't want to stare at spreadsheets. I don't want to look at our SEO strategy. I don't want to like pour over our content strategy. But I know I have a meeting on Thursday afternoon with our SEO analysts, and I know I better be ready for that meeting. And I better have poured over the data. I better have looked at it. I better have looked, okay, this is okay. We tried this. This is working. This is not working. We need to make this pivot. We need to change this thing. And then I'm involved, and I'm not micromanaging, but
No.
I am paying attention to the details. And so And so that weekly meeting with my key people is more for me than anything. It keeps me involved, it keeps me focused on the details, and it keeps us on track.
Yeah,
It's
that's awesome.
kind of like what I call a tripwire. It's like it happens every week, and we better both damn well be ready for it when it happens, and we better have done the things we said we were going to do. And that's good. That is happening, and that holds everything else accountable. If that meeting doesn't happen, then you can get sloppy. It's like, that's not that big a deal. I don't really feel like poring over that Google Doc. I hate spreadsheets. And it's like it doesn't happen. So it's like a forcing function that holds everything accountable.
No, it's fantastic that you've been able to develop that culture and that routine and structure where it is there. Because I mean, so many people say they're going to do it or want to do it, but they
Right.
don't. Yeah.
Right.
Do you just have it like set 15-minute in your calendar, their calendar, every week, same time?
Repeat every week. Done.
Yep.
Gonna happen. It better be a damn good reason why it doesn't. And it's funny, like when you were just talking, it reminds me of James Clear, Atomic Habits. He says we don't rise to the level of our goals.
Yeah.
We fall back. We
Yeah.
fall back to the level of our routines.
Yeah.
And that applies to business as it does to weight loss, as it does to learning how to play an instrument, as it does to learning, martial arts or anything. You don't rise to the level of that goal. You fall back to the habit. And so for us, the habit is, yes, every Thursday afternoon, we're meeting at this time. We better have our shit together.
Love it. Love it. We had talked about what's one of the biggest failures as CEOs and as a humble CEO. You shared with me a little bit about one time where you guys almost ran out of money.
Whew, yeah, that's happened several times. In my first business and my current business. One time in my first company, payroll was $250,000 a week, and it was a Sunday night. Payroll was due on the Monday morning, and I had $14,000 in the company checking account, and so I had to go into the shop. 100 and some odd guys wanting their paychecks. They got bills to pay, and I had to say, hey, listen, I have made some mistakes. I didn't shepherd this business and like I should have, and we can't make payroll. As it turned out, we made good on that, and that forced us to take the business back down to the studs and really kind of rebuild it. But so that it happened several times in my first company and my second company. We've had we've had moments where we flat out ran out of cash, and we had to like put our personal credit cards into the Amazon AWS account to keep the lights on. Where we've had moments where emails wouldn't go out because we didn't pay our email provider. And we didn't have the money to, and so we had to literally make deposits out of our own personal checking accounts into the company. It's just part of it. You don't want that. Obviously you want to avoid that. But if that happens, you as the founder have made a mistake somewhere. You have screwed up, and you have to figure out, okay, what did I do wrong here? How did I not see this coming? How did I get us here? And then you gotta, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you, because that enables you to make the business better.
Yeah, if you're willing to see the opportunity, see it as an opportunity versus a challenge. Yeah. And two, I bet, I mean, it sounds like this was like you went back and you brought the business down to its studs, like you said. And how did you get that same mentality though to go throughout the entire company versus just maybe the key people or the stockholders? How do you get everybody on board with that situation without scaring them off? Right? They're like, oh shit, I'm gonna lose my job. I'm out of here. I'm polishing up my resume.
It's tough. The first, when you're small, it's easier. When we were 150 people in my first company, it's a lot harder than it was when we were 10 or 20 or 30 in my second company, and that now we're close to 50. And so the reality is it's hard, but the first 10 people shouldn't be normal. These should be people that know it's going to be a choppy ride. These are people that know that there's more upside here, but there's also more risk. And those are the types of people you should look for when you're hiring somebody, particularly in a startup like what we have. You don't really want to hire the guy or gal that that worked at Salesforce.com for 10 years and was making 300 grand a year. You really kind of want to hire the person that's scrappy, that has something to prove. They have a chip on their shoulder, and they're ready for that kind of voyage for choppy waters. And so it comes back down to hiring, getting the right people on the bus. And I think I heard somewhere that your first 5 or 10 or maybe 15 employees should either be pirates or romantics. So pirates in the sense that they're ready for the risk. They're ready to be scrappy. They know it's going to be difficult. They're ready to do whatever it takes to succeed. Or romantics in the sense of they love the space, they love the idea, they love the vision, and they're willing to kind of almost not see the things that are scary about the business. And so if you can look for those types of people when you're making those first 5 or 10 or 15 hires, it can help you when you go through these choppy waters, because it's going to happen.
Gotcha. Awesome, man. Well, hey, I don't know if you're comfortable sharing for the audience where you guys are at with annual revenues, and if not, that's fine. But I always like to ask, where are you at, and what's next for you? What are your goals, man?
Yeah, it's 10 years in, but like Bezos says, it's still day one. I mean, we are still working on how do we make this service, this chore quicker, faster, cheaper, smoother, easier? How do we make vendors more money that use our platform? That's really how we gauge success. And we're at $30 million a year now. We want to be at 100
Nice,
million.
man. Awesome.
We don't know how long that's going to take. I hope we can do it in less than 5 years. And we're at 300,000 people using the app. We want to be at 1 million. We think when we get to 1 million, we'll be kind of in the same conversation as an Instacart or a DoorDash or an Uber, where we're kind of in the lexicon of the English language. You just don't even think about mowing the yard yourself. You don't think about calling somebody off of Craigslist. You just download it. Use GreenPal. It's easier. Why do it any way different?
Awesome, man. Well, I want to take actually one more question for you. The token question I ask every guest: if you're going to hire a CEO to take over the reins for your business, what is the one book you're going to require they read, and why?
Well, if they haven't read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People already, that's kind of a red flag for me.
Right?
Because really, it's required reading for anybody that's trying to live an effective life. And the title of the book kind of sucks, to be honest. I think it was written in a time before this big like self-help boom.
Sure.
Maybe in the mid 90s, I think was when Stephen Covey wrote it. And so that title didn't age well. So if you haven't read the book, you hear that title and it's like, it's just another one of these dumb self-help books. But it's not. It really is the Bible on how to be more self-aware, how to be a better leader, how to be more effective, how to prioritize the things that matter, how to plan better, how to not get caught up on and what Stephen Covey talks about, the thick of thin things. And it's just like one of those books that I read. I try to read or listen to it on Audible once a year. As I get older, I want to read the same 10 books over and over again. I don't want to read 20 new books. I want to revisit the ones that matter. And that's my favorite one.
Fantastic. Yeah, I absolutely love that book. My favorite is First Things First, that chapter.
First Things First. I mean,
changed my life.
Yeah. And you realize what an asshole you are when you read it. It's like, man, why?
Totally.
Yes. Yeah. You're reading it or listening to it. You're like, yes. I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that. So,
totally. Very cool. Great
one of my
book,
favorites.
Man. Awesome. Well, I would take a couple minutes to just summarize some of my key takeaways, Bryan. Well, one is automate early and automate often. And I love that point because it's how we can increase our gross margin. It's how we can do more things with less people. It's how we can grow faster, how we can have unique value propositions, have economies of scale. So it's fantastic. And, you were talking about, you were solving these same 20 problems every day. So taking that and finding an opportunity to automate. Weekly stand-up, just, my gosh, this isn't just for CEOs either. Like, not weekly stand-up, but a weekly one-on-one meeting. And for every manager in any company, they should be having a weekly one-on-one with their direct employees, right? And that's 15 minutes of just, where are we at? What are we working on? What are you struggling on? How can I help you? And I love that you called it a tripwire. And the last one, my key takeaway was always have a financial cushion and get familiar with your numbers. Really understand, the numbers in your company. Um, Bryan, if there was one takeaway that you'd really want the audience to absorb from our time together today, what would that be?
Yeah, it's hope is not a strategy when it comes to knowing the difference between the hard work and the difficult work. And every time well, how do I know the difference? Well, there's probably two or three things that you have been procrastinating about, you don't want to
Mm,
do, you don't want to deal with. And that's usually an indicator that that's the difficult work that you need to be working on.
yeah, it's the
And then you
one.
might, yeah, that's the one. And it's like, oh, maybe it's an employee that you need to change out, or maybe it's a marketing strategy, or maybe it's the books are a mess, or whatever it is. It's probably the one that you don't want to do.
Yeah,
And so
that's
that's the
awesome.
difficult work. And hope is not a strategy when it comes to dealing with the difficult work. Take time to do it. If you got to come in on a Sunday afternoon, do it, because that's how you build a business, and that's how you get out of the self-employed paradigm and into the business paradigm.
Love it. Love it, man. Hey, Bryan, if any of our listeners wanted to either utilize GreenPal for getting their lawn done, or B, follow up with you for any questions, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, life's too short to mow your own yard. So just go to greenpal.com or download it in the App
Cool.
Store. Anybody wants to hit me up, LinkedIn's great, or you can hit
Perfect.
me up on Instagram.
And that's Bryan Clayton, BryanClayton for LinkedIn search. Awesome, Bryan. Thanks again for being on the show. This was a fantastic episode, man.
Well, thanks, Patrick. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. And for the listeners out there, please hit the like and subscribe button. Help us spread the word about what we're doing. We're helping the next generation of CEOs and leaders be that much more effective. With that, this is your host, Patrick Rogers, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot.